Hello, welcome to the Focus on Christ podcast. This is episode number 12. My name's Joe, and I'm so super excited to be with you today. I can't wait to get started. Before we get started, though, I want to go over a couple administrative things with you real quick. Now, when we're done with this podcast, if you haven't already gone over to the Focus on Christ Facebook page and the Focus on Christ Instagram page and like those, I'd love it if you went over and did that. That way you can stay current with everything that's going on, new content when we release it. A lot of times we'll release it on either Facebook or Instagram. And that way you can stay current. Also, we send out every single day, or almost every single day, we'll have something on there to help inspire you and keep you motivated and help keep you focused on Christ. And that's so super important to us here at Focus on Christ, that you're living your life with Christ at the forefront, and that your life is oriented and directed towards Christ every single moment of the day that you can. So we know that's a work in progress for a lot of people. It's a work in progress for me. Let me tell you, I have a lot of work to do. However, the tools that we have over at focusonchrist.com have really helped me to keep my life in order and keep Christ at the forefront of every single thing I do. So if you haven't been over to focusonchrist.com, please go ahead and do that once you're done with this episode, with this podcast, and just sign up there and start getting some of that free material we have out there for you. It's going to be well worth your time and effort to do so. Super simple and easy techniques to help keep Christ at the forefront of your walk on a daily basis. It is. I can't wait till you get in there. We have a membership site out there, which is where we store all the content. So make sure you also get your username and password set up once you get registered with focusonchrist.com. And I promise you're going to love the material over there. If you're listening to this podcast and you're enjoying it, I promise you're going to love the material on focusonchrist.com. So let's go ahead and get started for today. Today we're going to be covering another law out of the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. Like I've said many times before, John is one of my absolute favorite mentors in my life. He and I started reading his books about 15, 20 years ago now, probably getting closer on to 20 now, and his voice really resonates with me. He has the ability to put things in a super simple format so that you can digest them easily and quickly implement them. And I'm also a member of the John Maxwell team, and so I get to work with him be mentored on a regular basis by him. It is just so super exciting and fun to have somebody like that in your life. He's just truly is the consummate leader. And so we're going to be looking at some of the laws, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and we're going to be looking at it from a biblical perspective. I'll be reading through passages of the Bible, and then we'll be looking at those in the framework of the law that we are dealing with at the time. So today we're going to be going the law of the inner circle. And the law of the inner circle says that a leader's potential is determined by those closest to him. This is a great law. It's probably one of my favorite laws. It's one of those laws that for many people can be easy to implement, and it's also an area where you can really see your gaps pretty quickly. The law of the inner circle, like I said, it states that a leader's potential is determined by those closest to him. So we talked about the law of the lid a long time, back at the very beginning. That has to do with more of your potential as a leader, as your individual potential as a leader, and how you grow and how you develop and how you hone your leadership craft and rise your leadership level. The law of the inner circle is talking about how those people that are surround you lift you up, how your team that you have hired and brought on, or the team that you're working with or managing, how they have the potential to lift you up. And not just necessarily lift you up, but lift your organization up and lift the leadership capacity of that particular organization. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. This is one of those areas that sometimes, though, it requires that hard fix where you have to look at the people around you and say, this isn't working. Our potential's capped. I need new people around me. And so you have to bring some better people into your inner circle. I believe, but I can't be sure, that it was Jim Rohn who said that you are the sum of the five closest people in your life, and this can include family. You will never outgrow the five closest people in your life. They're going to be who lift you up the highest. And so that has to do with the law of the inner circle as well. So whoever those 5 people are that are closest to you in your life, if they're pulling you down, you're going to go down. If they're lifting you up, you're going to go up. So one of the things that I did recently in order to change my inner circle quite a bit is I had to hire some coaching and some consulting experts and to help place people in my life. So I have a whole team now around me that are there simply to lift me up and not tear me down, and they are all at a higher level than I am, so I have somewhere to go up. And then when I get to that level, then I'll get a new circle of people to surround myself with so that I can continue to grow and develop and move higher. And so we're going to look at some passages out of the Bible that talk about the inner circle and how that played out in the biblical era. So we'll have a couple passages from the Old Testament and a couple passages from the New Testament today. We are going to start in Exodus chapter 17 today. Exodus chapter 17. And this is a story about Moses and a time in his life when he had to surround himself with some people. Sometimes you don't have anybody around you and you just need people to come around you to help support your team. So we're going to start in verse number 8. It says, Then Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, Choose for us men, and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek, while Moses and Aaron and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed, and whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands grew weary, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it, while Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and another on the other side. So his hands were steady until the going down of the sun, and Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. What a fantastic story about how having the right people around you at the right time can change the tide of a battle. In this particular case, it was actually the tide of the physical battle. But in our lives, we're going to be faced with overwhelming odds at times. We're going to be faced with trials and situations that struggle, that we... it's just going to take everything we do to try and accomplish and stay focused on our vision and on our mission and our goals that God has given us. And at those particular times, we have to have the right people next to us. In this particular case, we see that Joshua and Aaron held up the arms of Moses while he's holding the staff of God, so that they could continue the battle against Amalek. I don't know what that rod or staff weighed. I have no idea. I know that Moses was getting tired. He had to sit down, and then somebody had to hold his arms up for him so that the battle would prevail. And that's just a really, really cool story. I can't imagine from sun up till sundown having to hold something locked out over my head. And even if it was a 1 pound staff, that would add up over the course of time. I would imagine that would be a very uncomfortable position. However, having good people beside you can help hold you up so that the battle can be won. If you have the right people there, it's going to work. If you don't have the right people, it's not going to work. I can think back in my life to situations where I didn't necessarily have the right people around me, and so it became so when things went sideways, they just went really sideways, where if I'd had good people around me to lift me up. I think about some of the struggles I was facing when I was going through my divorce. I was in an environment where I didn't have a lot of really close friends, and I definitely didn't have any Christian friends in my life at that time. Everybody was just very secular, and we just weren't really close. And so when I was going through that struggle and sharing that story with people, one, I wasn't sharing it with a lot of people, and then when I would share it with people, I would get secular answers back. And people always want to make you feel good when you feel bad, and so they'll tell you things that correlate or corroborate, so you get this confirmation bias going on. And it ended up, maybe, I don't know for sure, because God's called me to a new place in this life. He's given me a fantastic wife that I'm with right now. We've been married for 7 years now. I've known her for 9, and we're doing really good things, and our lives are going in good directions, and we're living in the mission God's given us. So I don't, I'm not going to speak into what happened in the past, but if I would have had better people around me, things would have been a lot different, I am sure, because I would have had good counsel. I would have had a good inner circle, and I would have had people lifting me up and telling me that it's okay to think the way I was thinking and deal with the things I was dealing with. And while it was a terrible situation, there was no infidelity or any horrific things going on. It was not having good people around you means that you can't ask good questions to people, and then they can't, and then it's really hard to get good feedback if you're not asking good questions. So that's one example where it would have been better in my life if I'd had a better inner circle. Let's go over to 1 Kings chapter 2 now. So 1 Kings chapter 2. In here, we're seeing the transition from King David to King Solomon, and what that looked like, and some of the things going on. So we're going to start reading verse 1. When David's time to die drew near, he commanded Solomon his son, saying, I am about to go the way of the earth. Be strong and show yourself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his rules, his testimonies, as written in the law of Moses, that you may prosper in all that you do wherever you turn, that the Lord may establish his word that he spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons pay close attention to their way, to walk before me in faithfulness with all their heart and with all their soul, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. Moreover, you also know that Joab the son of Zeruiah, what Joab the son of Zeruiah did to me, and how he dealt with the 2 commanders of the armies of Israel, Abner the son of Ner and Amasa the son of Jether, whom he killed, avenging in time of peace for blood that had been shed in war, and putting the blood of war on his belt around his waist and on the sandals of his feet. Act therefore according to your wisdom, but do not let his gray head go down to Sheol in peace. But deal loyally with the sons of Barzillai the Gileadite, and let them both be among those who eat at your table. For with such loyalty they met me when I fled from Absalom your brother. And there's also with you Shimei the son of Gera, the Benjamite from Bahurim, who cursed me with a grievous curse on the day when I went to Mahanaim. But when he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by the Lord, saying, I will not put you to death with the sword. Now therefore, do not hold him guiltless, for you are a wise man. You will know what you ought to do with him, and you shall bring his gray head down with blood to Sheol. So David's passing instructions along to Solomon, trying to finish out his life well, and to bring justice to individuals that had done him wrong and had really weren't working for the good of the kingdom of Israel. And so David is trying to resolve some of those issues in his past as he's preparing to die. Then David slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And at that time, David reigned over Israel was 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. So Solomon sat on the throne of David his father, and his kingdom was firmly established. This is all pre-framing for how Solomon is going to use the law of the inner circle and surround himself with the right people. Then Adonijah, the son of Haggith, came to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, and said, and she said, do you come peacefully? He said, peacefully. Then she said, I have something to say to you. She said, "Speak." He said, "You know that the kingdom was mine, and that all Israel fully expected me to reign. However, the kingdom has turned about and become my brother's, for it was from the Lord. And now I have one request to make of you. Do not refuse me." She said to him, "Speak." And he said, "Please ask King Solomon. He will not refuse you, to give me Abishag the Shulamite as my wife." Bathsheba said, "Very well, I will speak for you to the king." So Bathsheba went to King Solomon to speak with him on behalf of Adonijah, and the king rose to meet her and bowed down to her. Then he sat on his throne and had a seat brought in for the king's mother, and she sat on his right. Then she said, "I have one small request to make of you. Do not refuse me." And the king said to her, "Make your request, my mother, for I will not refuse you." She said, "Let Abishag the Shulamite be given to Adonijah your brother as his wife." King Solomon answered his mother, "And why do you ask Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? Ask for him the kingdom also, for he is my older brother, and on his side are Abiathar the priest and Joab the son of Zeruiah." Then King Solomon swore by the Lord, saying, "God, do so to me, and more also, if this word does not cost Adonijah his life. Now therefore, as the Lord lives, who has established me and placed me on the throne of David my father, and who has made me a house, as he promised, Adonijah shall be put to death this day." So King Solomon sent Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and he struck him down, and he died. Here Solomon is laying some groundwork for ensuring that his inner circle stays clean and pure. He had a choice to make here where he would leave people of influence in his life. So this was, he's talking about Adonijah here, and he says, and for he is my older brother, and on his side are Abiathar the priest and Joab the son of Zeruiah, two people that have already betrayed him. And then then Adonijah is coming to him and asking him for a favor to be granted a wife of a Shunammite woman. So he's cleaning out his inner circle and making sure it is pure and clean, so that it is wholesome and is going to lift him up rather than pull him down. And to Abiathar the priest the king said, "Go to Anathoth to your estate, for you deserve death, but I will not at this time put you to death, because you carried the ark of the Lord God before David my father, and because you shared in all my father's affliction." So Solomon expelled Abiathar from being priest to the Lord, thus fulfilling the word of the Lord that he had spoken concerning the house of Eli in Shiloh. When the news came to Joab, for Joab had supported Adonijah, although he had not supported Absalom, Joab fled to the tent of the Lord and caught hold of the horns of the altar. And when it was told King Solomon, "Joab has fled to the tent of the Lord, and behold, he is beside the altar," Solomon sent Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, saying, "Go, strike him down." So Benaiah came to the tent of the Lord and said, "The king commands, come out." But he said, "No, I will die here." Then Benaiah brought the king's word again. "Thus says Joab, and thus he answered me." The king replied to him, "Do as he said, strike him down and bury him, and thus take away from me and my father's house the guilt for the blood that Joab shed without cause. The Lord will bring back his bloody deeds on his own head, because without the knowledge of my father David he attacked and killed with the sword 2 men more righteous and better than himself, Abner son of Ner, commander of the army of Israel, and Amasa son of Jether, commander of the army of Judah. So shall their blood come back on the head of Joab and on the head of his descendants forever. But for David and for his descendants and for his house and for his throne there shall be peace from the Lord forevermore." Then Benaiah the son of Jehoiada went up and struck him down and put him to death, and he was buried in his own house in the wilderness. The king put Benaiah the son of Jehoiada over the army in the place of Joab, and the king of Zadok the priest, and the king put Zadok the priest in place of Abiathar. So now King Solomon is putting people in place in his inner circle. So in a kingdom, you're going to have key people that have to be in place in order for you to be successful as a king. And so he is simply ensuring that he's putting people in place that are better, not necessarily better than him, but are at an equal playing field with him, and they're going to be loyal to him. And so he's surrounding himself by the right people to help lift him up. Now you'll hear people talk at times about how you need to put people in place around you that disagree with you. And that's a completely different principle than putting people in place that are there to, or that are out to get you and that are going to be antagonistic. Yes, I think you do need people in place around you that don't necessarily see things your way. You don't want a whole bunch of yes men around you, because then you will never know where you err and you will never truly grow. However, you don't want people that have evil intent and are looking to stab you in the back and to take the kingdom away from you in your inner circle, so to speak. Then the king sent and summoned Shimei and said to him, "Build yourself a house in Jerusalem and dwell there, and do not go out from there to any place whatever. For on the day that you go out and cross the brook Kidron, know for certain that you shall die. Your blood shall be upon your own head." And Shimei said to the king, "What you say is good, as my lord the king has said, so will your servant do." So Shimei lived in Jerusalem many days. But it happened at the end of 3 years that 2 of Shimei's servants ran away to Achish, son of Maacah, king of Gath. And when it was told Shimei, "Behold, your servants are in Gath," Shimei rose, saddled a donkey, and went to Gath to Achish to seek his servants. Shimei went and brought his servants from Gath. And when Solomon was told that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and returned, the king sent and summoned Shimei to him. "Did I not make you swear by the Lord and solemnly warn you, saying, know for certain that on the day that you go out to whatever place you shall die? And you said to me, what you say is good, I will obey. Why then have you not kept your oath to the Lord and the commandment with which I commanded you?" The king also said to Shimei, "You know in your own heart all the harm that you did to David my father. So the Lord will bring back your harm on your own head. But King Solomon shall be blessed, and the throne of David shall be established before the Lord forever." Then the king commanded Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and he went out and struck him down, and he died. So the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. So all this, even up to 3 years, was the length of time it was taking Solomon to establish his kingdom. It says the very last verse here says, so the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. It took 3 years. If you somehow, and I'm totally guilty of this, if you somehow think that leadership and establishing yourself and establishing your inner circle is an overnight thing, you're pretty delusional. It's going to take you a while. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of time finding the right people to have in your inner circle. And like I said, you can get them there, and then they're going to change as you grow, and that's a really cool thing. It means you can keep growing. There's not going to be any level that you can't achieve or you can't grow through. There's always going to be something more for you. So that's pretty cool. Let's go over to chapter 19. Chapter 19, we're going to read verses 4 through 10. So verses 4 through 10. This is where Elijah is fleeing from Jezebel. It's kind of interesting that he had all the priests of Baal have recently been defeated, and then by Elijah, and the priests are all slaughtered, and then Elijah is running from this woman. And I don't mean that as a slight against a woman. I mean it's kind of funny that one person could scare him so much that he's running and he's hiding. So we're going to pick up in 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 4. It said, "But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he asked that he might die, saying, It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers. And he lay down and he slept under a broom tree. And behold, an angel touched him and said to him, Arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was at his head was a cake, baked on hot stones, and a jar of water. And he ate, and he drank, and he lay down again. And the angel of the Lord came again a second time, and touched him, and said, Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you. And he arose, and he ate, and he drank, and he went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of God. There he came to a cave and lodged in it. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him and said to him, What are you doing here, Elijah? He said, I have been here, Elijah. And he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. So here we see Elijah in this kind of pit of despair. He's 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 not doing very good, and he's not in a good mental state. He's not in the appreciation for what God has done for him, and he's in communion with God about wanting to die, and just how he feels that he is the only one left that's really being loyal to God. And we see that how God dealt with that is he gave him physical nourishment. So he gave him bread and water and sent him on a journey for 40 days and 40 nights, which is a completely different story. The 40 days, 40 nights thing is really interesting in and of its own. We see that pattern throughout the Bible for different things. So this was a very significant journey that Elijah had to go on. And we see that part of what's going on here is Elijah doesn't feel like he has anybody around him to support him. And this really shows a testament to the law of the inner circle. If Elijah would have had a couple people around him to support him, to lift him up, and to help him grow, and to give him encouragement, this conversation probably never would have happened. And so it's important. This shows you how important it can be to surround yourself with the right people and to have strong people around you, so that they can lift you up when you're in these times of despair. And it's also important as a leader that you are the person surrounding others to help lift them up as you go along through your life as well. Let's go over to Psalm 1. First Psalm. Psalm 1, we're going to read verses 1 through 3. It said, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers." This is this first chapter in the book of Psalms is so, it paints such a clear picture of the importance of having a good inner circle. Blesses the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. So these are, if your inner circle is not lifting you up, if they are people that don't have a good moral compass, if they don't have if their ethical center is off target, if they are willing to make compromises to their integrity, those are modern day correlates that you could put in here. If that's what the people closest to you look like, you need to make some changes. You need to make some changes really fast, because it used to be in school that if you had a good student and a bad student, you would pair them up with the idea that the good student would pull the bad student up. It never, ever works that way. I say that with very strong confidence. Never is not necessarily a word I like to use all the time, but I'll use it in this case, and I'll use it very strongly. It never works that way. The poor student always pulls the higher student down. It just never works the other way when you pair them up like that. However, if your delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law you meditate day and night, you'll be like a tree planted by streams of water. So always well watered, strong, deep roots that yields its fruit in due season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he will prosper. When you surround yourself by the right people, by strong people, by people that have a strong moral compass and a good ethical foundation, and their integrity is where it needs to be, and they're disciplined, and they are committed to the cause and the mission and the vision, then they are simply going to make you so much stronger. Really an awesome example here of how the law of the inner circle works. We're going to go over to the New Testament now. We're going to go over to Luke chapter 9. By the way, I hope you're enjoying this new ESV translation. I find it so much easier to read. However, if it's not working for you, let me know and I will work on finding something else that works a little bit better for everyone. Because this isn't about me, it's about you. And if I'm not communicating well, then I need to know that so that I can help you better. So let's go over to Luke 9. We're going to go to 28 through 36. Now, about 8 days after these sayings, he took with him Peter and John and James and went up on the mountain to pray. And as he was praying, the appearance of his face was altered, and his clothing became dazzling white. And behold, 2 men were talking with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his departure, which was about to be accomplished at Jerusalem. Now Peter and those who were with him were heavy and asleep, but when they became fully awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men who stood with him. And as the men were parting from him, Moses said to Jesus, Master, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah, not knowing what he said. And as he was saying these things, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were afraid, and as they entered the cloud, and a voice came out of the cloud saying, This is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him. And when the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone, and they kept silent, and told no one in those days anything that they had of what they had seen. This story here, as it pertains to the inner circle, is that Christ is preparing his people for when he is going to leave this earth. It's important with your inner circle that you invest the time, effort, and energy not only to gathering the right people around you, but also to equipping them and to preparing them for your future and whatever that your vision and mission might be. So while the story of the Transfiguration in particular is not didn't necessarily change the trajectory of the Christian empire, it does clearly demonstrate that how Christ was preparing his in this case, Peter, James, and John, for the future and preparing the way and what that was going to look like and what that future was going to hold. And that's important as a leader that we do that. We're going to go over here to John 17 now. This will be verses 11 through 26. Okay, so John 17, 11 through 26. It says, And I am no longer in the world, but they are in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, keep them in your name, which you have given me, that they may be one, even as we are one. While I was with them, I kept them in your name, which you have given me. I have guarded them, and not one of them has been lost, except the son of destruction, that the scripture might be fulfilled. But now I am coming to you, and these things I speak in the world, that they may have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, because they were not of this world, just as I am not of the world. I do not ask that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. And you sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. As for their sake, I consecrate myself, that they may be sanctified in truth. I do not ask for these only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, just as you, the Father, are in me, and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them, and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and loved them, even as you loved me. Father, I desire that they also, whom you have given me, may be with me where I am, to see my glory, that you have given me, because you loved me before the foundation of the world. O righteous Father, even though the world does not know you, I know you, and these know you that have sent me. I made I made known to them your name, and I will continue to make it known, that the love with which you have loved me may be in them, and I in them. So, as a leader, it is the things that you do aren't always going to be recognized as good and great, and they may not even be recognized at all. It may be that the things that you do are done in silence, but Christ here has surrounded himself with an inner circle of apostles and disciples. He has the 12 apostles that he's talking about here, and then there's that one apostle he references in particular, which was Judas, who betrayed him, and that was to fulfill the prophecy. And so we see that Christ has chosen to select a particular inner circle, and then he has fed them, he has built them up, he has lifted them, he has grown and developed them to the people that they are today, and then he's asking a special blessing upon them as they move forward into this future. So this is a good example of how Christ has managed his inner circle to make sure that it was composed of good people and that they were properly equipped and could support and do the work that he had called them to. The last passage we're going to look at right now is going to be over in 1 Thessalonians chapter 3. 1 Thessalonians 3 in verses 2 through 10. We're just going to go ahead and start at the we'll start at verse 1 just to keep things simple. We're going to read 1 through 10. It says, "Therefore, when we could bear it no longer, we were willing to be left behind at Athens alone. And we sent Timothy, your brother, and God's co-worker in the gospel of Christ, to establish and exhort you in your faith, that no one be moved by these afflictions. For you yourselves know that we were destined for this. For when we were with you, we kept telling you beforehand that we were to suffer affliction, just as it has come to pass, and just as you know. For this reason, when I could bear it no longer, I sent to learn about your faith, for fear that somehow the tempter had tempted you, and our labor would be in vain. But now that Timothy has come to us from you, and has brought us the good news of your faith and love, and reported that you always remember us kindly, and long to see us, as we long to see you. For this reason, brothers, in all our distress and affliction, we have been comforted about you through the faith. For now we live, if you standing fast in the Lord, for what thanksgiving can we return to God for you? For all the joy that we feel for your sake before God, as we pray most earnestly night and day, and that we may see you face to face and supply what is lacking in your faith." So here we have there's a lot going on in this backstory. The important piece for what we're talking about today with the law of the inner circle is that Timothy was a very young man, and he was there was just a lot of concern with this church that they'd gone in, they'd done some work, but they hadn't been able to make it back personally to check on it. And so as a leader, that's one of the things that we have to do on a continuing basis, is we have to check up on our inner circle. We have to be leadership isn't something that you do and then you forget. It's not something you instill and then you hope it takes and you can forget about. You have to constantly be going back and checking and double checking and reinforcing and helping continue to lift up, because your inner circle isn't just there to lift you. Sometimes you're there to lift your inner circle. And so a lot of what we've been talking today about, I use some terms referencing as in lifting up and that sort of thing, but it's a lot of it is also about people that are just that high quality individuals around you. Sometimes they're going to be hiring you, sometimes they're going to be lowering you, but you have you have that unique role of being able to lead that inner circle and to provide and to strengthen and encourage and lift up. And so that's some of what's going on here. And Timothy has been entrusted with some of that role to provide to that congregation. He's just coming back and reporting that the work that they have done, how they established that church there and that inner circle there has been very, very successful. And that's a real testament to Paul's work in that particular area. So that's the last biblical reference on the law of the inner circle. Remember, the law of the inner circle is a leader's potential is determined by those closest to him. So we have choices to make in life, and sometimes they're not always easy. I have you are born into a family, and a lot of times that family is going to be your inner circle for a really long time. And I hope for your sake that it's been a really good inner circle. However, if it hasn't been a really good inner circle, then sometimes you have to make those hard choices. Sometimes you're in a leadership capacity where your inner circle isn't what it needs to be. You have people that are violating your ethical norms, or their moral compass is off point, and that is, for whatever your organization is, that's a real critical component that moral compass is aligned correctly. And I'm not going to tell you how you need to handle those situations. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach that, and to do it right or to do it wrong. And I don't really want to. That's not what we're talking about today. We're just simply talking about the law of the inner circle. There's a lot to it that I could get into. So if that's something you really need to dive deep into, then leave me a comment, direct message me, or PM me, and let me know how I could help you and maybe help your organization to walk through some of these hurdles. I'd love to do that. And you can always reach out to me at joe@focusonchrist.com to do that. So that wraps up the law of the inner circle today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I've really enjoyed the law of the inner circle, and I hope that I've been able to share a little bit about it with you from a biblical perspective and add a little bit of value to your day today. Before we go, I want to make sure that you've gone over to our Facebook page and our Instagram page and like that, and you've checked out our YouTube channel. And if you haven't subscribed to our podcast, if this is the first one you're listening to, make sure you go and subscribe to that and listen to some of the back episodes where I've covered some of the other laws of leadership from the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. I know you're going to love it. If you have not been over to focusonchrist.com, I want to encourage you to go over there and to sign up for some of that free material that we have on there. I know how much it's going to help you. I know how valuable, I know how important your walk with Christ is. If you've just listened to this episode, then I know absolutely that you value your walk with Christ and your relationship with Christ a lot. And I want to be able to help you to do that. I want to be able to help you to keep Christ at the forefront of your life every single day. And that's not always easy, because the world is a constant mess out there, and it's really easy to get distracted and to get sidetracked and to forget to do some of the basic and simple things that can really help you to stay focused. So I want to encourage you to check out focusonchrist.com and get signed up on there. When you do that, you're going to be taken over to a membership site. That membership site houses a ton of content that is designed specifically to help you. It gives you some tools, some tips, some tricks, and some hacks to help you keep your focus on Christ. Also, almost every single day, about 6 days a week, we post a inspirational post on our Facebook page. Usually it's live, and we post that up there to help you keep inspired and stay focused on Christ. Every single day you need a reminder that Christ is the one, the true, and the only living God, and you need that constantly refreshed in your mind, or else it becomes normal and it becomes it just becomes routine, and we don't want our Christian walk to become routine. We want it to be special every single day. So I hope this helped. I hope it adds some value in your day, and I can't wait to see you guys next time. God bless.